In the STERKFONTEIN Caves, Peter Verhulsel faced a choice. The safety line ended, but the unexplored tunnel in front of him appealed to him. Ignoring every rule of cave diving, he unclipped and swam into the darkness. That single decision unleashed a 6-week nightmare and sealed his fate. As always, viewer discretion is advised as we uncover the chilling story of ambition, recklessness, and the unforgiving nature of underwater caves. This is the true tragedy of Peter Verhulsel in the STERKFONTEIN Caves. On September 29, 1984, the sun rose over the rolling hills of South Africa's Gauteng province, casting long shadows across the entrance to STERKFONTEIN Caves. Peter Verhulsel, a 29-year-old adrenaline junkie with a passion for underwater exploration, arrived at the site with 2 friends. His eyes sparkled with excitement as he gazed into the cave's entrance, eager to delve into its watery depths. Peter had dived these caves before, but never this deep. His confidence was palpable, bordering on cockiness. He carried only a single aqualung and 1 light, a stark contrast to the more extensive gear his companions had brought. When one of his friends suggested he take backup equipment, Peter brushed off the concern with a casual laugh. They knew Peter's stubborn streak all too well. As they prepared their gear, a local guide approached, offering a final safety briefing. He stressed the importance of staying together and never letting go of the guideline, the lifeline that would lead them back to safety through the maze-like tunnels. Peter nodded impatiently, barely listening. He was too focused on the adventure that lay ahead, the unexplored passages that called to him like sirens. The trio entered the water, the cool liquid embracing them as they descended into the cave's murky depths. At first, everything went according to plan. They followed the guideline, their lights cutting through the darkness to reveal stunning rock formations and hidden chambers. But it wasn't long before Peter's restless nature got the best of him. About 30 minutes into the dive, he spotted a narrow opening branching off from the main passage. Without warning, he let go of the guideline and swam towards it. Panic set in as his companions searched for him, their lights sweeping frantically through the water. After what felt like an eternity, Peter emerged from the passage, a mischievous grin visible behind his mask. His friends were not amused. They scolded him for breaking protocol, reminding him of the dangers. Peter apologized, but the glint in his eyes suggested he was far from chastened. They continued their dive, but the atmosphere had changed. Tension hung in the water like a physical presence. Peter's friends kept a closer eye on him, worried he might disappear again. Their fears were justified. Less than 10 minutes later, Peter once again let go of the guideline, darting off to explore another side passage. This time, his friends managed to grab him before he got too far, forcefully pulling him back to the safety of the main tunnel. His friends were at a loss. They considered aborting the dive, but they were already deep in the cave system. Turning back now could be just as dangerous as pressing on. With great reluctance, they decided to continue, but now they flanked Peter, determined to keep him from straying again. For a while, it seemed their strategy was working. Peter remained between them, his hands firmly gripping the guideline. But as they ventured deeper into the cave system, the allure of the unknown proved too strong for Peter to resist. As they rounded a bend, Peter's light caught a glimpse of something shimmering in the distance. Without a word, he suddenly released the guideline and shot off into the darkness, leaving his stunned companions behind. Panic set in immediately. The 2 remaining divers searched frantically, their lights sweeping in wide arcs, desperately seeking any sign of their friend. Minutes ticked by, each second feeling like an eternity as they scoured the area. But Peter was gone. As their air supplies dwindled, the grim reality of the situation began to sink in. They couldn't stay and search indefinitely. They had to make the agonizing decision to surface and seek help. With heavy hearts, they began their ascent, following the guideline back through the twisting passages. Every few meters, they would pause, shining their lights into the surrounding darkness, hoping against hope to catch a glimpse of Peter. But each time, they were met with nothing but the oppressive emptiness of the underwater caverns. As they emerged from the cave entrance, gasping and pulling off their masks, the gravity of the situation hit them full force. Peter was still down there, lost in the labyrinthine network of tunnels with limited air and a single light. The clock was ticking. Word spread quickly, and within hours, a massive search and rescue operation was underway. Cave diving experts from across South Africa and beyond converged on the STERKFONTEIN Caves, ready to brave the treacherous waters in hopes of finding Peter. Days turned into weeks as teams of divers methodically searched the cave system. They pushed deeper and deeper, exploring every nook and cranny, every side passage and hidden chamber. The operation was fraught with danger. The rescuers knew all too well that one wrong move could result in them sharing Peter's fate. As the search dragged on, hope began to fade. Peter's family maintained a vigil at the cave entrance, their faces etched with worry and grief. His wife, Cheryl, refused to leave, clinging to the belief that her husband would somehow find his way back to her. Meanwhile, deep within the cave system, Peter Verhulsel was fighting for survival. After breaking away from his friends, he had quickly become disoriented in the maze-like tunnels. His single light cast eerie shadows on the cave walls, playing tricks on his mind as he swam desperately in search of a way out. As the air supply dwindled, panic set in. Peter knew he was in serious trouble. He began to regret his reckless actions, the overconfidence that had led him to this dire situation. But regret wouldn't save him now. He needed to find a way to survive. Fortune smiled upon Peter, if only briefly. He stumbled upon a small air pocket, a tiny underground beach at the end of a flooded tunnel. Gasping, he pulled himself out of the water, his body shaking with exhaustion and fear. In the pitch blackness, Peter took stock of his situation. He had no food, no drinkable water, and no way to signal for help. His light, still functioning but with a weakened beam, was his only companion in the oppressive darkness. Days passed, blending into an indistinguishable blur of hunger, thirst, and despair. Peter drifted in and out of consciousness, his mind playing cruel tricks on him. He imagined he heard the voices of rescuers, only to be met with crushing silence when he called out. In his lucid moments, Peter thought of his wife and mother. The pain of knowing the anguish he must be causing them was almost unbearable. With trembling hands, he used a small rock to scratch a message into the sand of his tiny beach. "I love you, Cheryl and Ma." As Peter's strength waned, the search above ground continued unabated. The rescuers refused to give up, driven by a mix of professional duty and human compassion. They knew the odds were stacked against them, but the thought of Peter trapped somewhere in the darkness spurred them on. 6 weeks into the search, a breakthrough finally came. A team of divers, pushing the limits of their equipment and endurance, ventured into a previously unexplored section of the cave system. As they navigated a particularly narrow passage, their lights fell upon a sight that made their hearts skip a beat: a small underground beach. With bated breath, they approached, their lights scanning the area. And there, etched in the sand, they saw the message: "I love you, Cheryl and Ma." Next to it lay Peter's body, still and silent. The discovery sent shockwaves through the rescue team and the waiting crowd above. Peter had been found, but not in the way they had hoped. The news hit his family like a physical blow. Cheryl collapsed into the arms of Peter's mother, both women racked with sobs of grief and anguish. As the divers carefully brought Peter's body to the surface, a somber silence fell over the gathered crowd. The tragedy that had unfolded in the depths of STERKFONTEIN Caves was now a stark reality, a grim reminder of the unforgiving nature of cave diving. In the days that followed, as the community grappled with the loss, questions began to arise. How could this have happened? What went wrong? The answers, it seemed, lay in a combination of factors: Peter's overconfidence, his inadequate equipment, and his disregard for basic safety protocols. An autopsy revealed that Peter had survived for approximately 3 weeks before succumbing to starvation. The small air pocket he had found had prolonged his life, but without food or fresh water, his fate had been sealed. The knowledge that he had been alive for so long, alone in the darkness, only added to the tragedy. In the years that followed, Peter's story became a cautionary tale, told and retold in diving circles around the world. It served as a stark reminder of the risks inherent in cave diving and the importance of respecting the unforgiving nature of underwater environments. The STERKFONTEIN Caves themselves underwent changes in the wake of the tragedy. Authorities implemented stricter regulations on who could dive in the caves and under what conditions. The site where Peter's body was found became a somber memorial, a place of reflection for those who understood the lure and the danger of underwater exploration. This was the true tragedy of Peter Verhulsel. May his soul rest in peace.